He knew how to breathe through the noise. Arjun Vikram Mehta had been doing it since he was 11, since the first time a substitute teacher looked at his name on the roll sheet and said, "Just pick an American name for the year, buddy. It'll be easier." He learned to smile and say nothing. He learned to answer to Aj. He learned to let the jokes about curry and call centers roll off him like rain on glass. He learned that anger was a privilege brown boys weren't issued at birth. So he breathed. In 4, hold 4, out 6. A silent mantra his mother taught him the night he came home crying because someone had told him to go back to 7-Eleven. She had cupped his face and whispered, "Beta, they can take everything except what you choose to keep inside." At 18, on the morning that was supposed to change everything, he was using that breath again. The Mercedes GLE was midnight blue, still wearing the temporary tags, a graduation gift his father had parked in the driveway with a single red bow and a note. "Drive like the world is already yours. One day it will be." Arjun had laughed when he read it, then cried in the garage so no one would see. He left Richmond at 5:17 a.m. The sky was the color of wet cement. He wore the navy blazer with the school crest stitched over the heart, white Oxford shirt pressed by his mother the night before, khakis that still had the crease, and the thin steel card his grandmother had clasped around his right wrist with tears in her eyes. Protection, she had said. He hadn't taken it off since. The playlist was low, old Gazzles mixed with low FI beats, because silence felt too heavy for a day this big. Princeton, the interview that could turn every late night, every skip party, every you so articulate backhanded compliment into a golden ticket out. Full ride, a seat at a table that had never been set for someone who looked like him. 4 hours south on I-95, the caffeine wore off just past Fredericksburg. He pulled into a rest stop that smelled like diesel and burnt coffee. There were only 6 other cars. He parked far under a tree, cut the engine, and sat for a moment just breathing the quiet. He didn't see the cruiser until the red and blue lit up the leaves behind him like a horror movie filter. The officer didn't use his siren. He just glided in, parked at an angle that blocked the Mercedes, and stepped out slow. White, mid-40s, wrap-around sunglasses even though the sun hadn't fully risen. The kind of man who carried certainty like a second gun. Arjun watched in the rear view and felt his entire life narrow to a single point. Hands on the wheel. 10 and 2. Visible. Breath even. The officer circled the car once, boots crunching gravel, hand never far from his holster. Then he tapped the window with 2 knuckles. Arjun rolled it down. License, registration, and proof of insurance. No hello. No, how you doing today? Just accusation wearing a badge. Arjun moved slowly, reached across to the glove box, pulled out the leather folder his father kept immaculate, and handed everything over. The officer studied the license under his flashlight, then looked at Arjun, then at the car, then back at the license like the photo had personally insulted him. "This your car?" "Yes, sir. It's registered to my father. The insurance card is right there." "You don't look like somebody who belongs in a car like this." The words landed clean and sharp, no anesthesia. Arjun felt them slice open every quiet fear he had ever swallowed. "I'm on my way to a college interview, sir. Princeton University. I have the confirmation email if you..." Step out of the vehicle. "Officer, may I ask why I'm being..." "Now." Arjun opened the door and stepped onto the concrete. Cold seeped through his loafers. He kept his hands visible, palms open like surrender flags. A second cruiser pulled in before the first officer even finished his questions. Younger cop, maybe 28, eyes darting like he wasn't sure this was the right play. The older one didn't care. "Where'd you get this car, son? Who'd you take it from? You got anything in here I need to know about?" "Open the trunk." Arjun's voice stayed soft, almost polite. "So, I'm happy to answer questions, but I'm not comfortable consenting to a search without cause." That was the wrong answer. The older officer's face hardened. "Turn around. Hands on the hood." "Officer, I'm not resisting. I just..." The cuffs came out faster than Arjun could finish the sentence. Cold steel snapped around his wrists. The metal pinched skin. His collar dug into his forearm. A woman pumping gas gasped loud enough for 3 states to hear. Her husband pulled out his phone. Arjun didn't yell, didn't twist, didn't curse. He simply said, calm and clear, the way his father taught him to speak in court one day, "My father is going to want to know about this." The officer laughed, a short, ugly bark. "Yeah? Tell Daddy to come pick up his stolen Benz." They didn't look at the registration again. They didn't see the name printed in bold. Vikram R. Mehta, Attorney General, Commonwealth of Virginia. They sat him on the curb while they tore the car apart. Backpack unzipped. Laptop opened. Princeton portfolio dumped on the warm hood like garbage. His grandmother's car clinked against the pavement when they yanked his arms back. They found nothing. Of course they found nothing. But the video was already uploading. 29 seconds. Brown boy in a blazer, hands cuffed behind his back, officer mocking him loud enough for the MIC to catch every word. Caption: they just cuffed a kid for driving a nice car. While Brown. 500,000 views in 31 minutes. By the time they loaded him into the back of the cruiser, seatbelt impossible with cuffs, he could hear the officer's radio crackling with confusion. Sarge, the kid's last name is Mehta. As in. Shut it. Rook. We'll sort it at the station. The county lockup smelled like bleach, sweat, and broken dreams. They put him in a gray cinder-block room with a camera that blinked red but recorded nothing. No phone call. No parent notification. Just a metal bench and the smell of fear that never quite leaves those walls. He sat straight, back not touching the wall. Breath steady. In 4. Hold 4. Out 6. Across the state. In the Capitol building in Richmond, Attorney General Vikram Mehta was ending a press conference on the new police accountability bill when his chief of staff, Priya, grabbed his elbow hard enough to bruise. "Sir, you need to see this." She shoved her phone into his hand. The video played on mute first, then with sound. Vikram watched his son stand perfectly still while the world tried to break him. He watched the cuffs go on. He watched the officer laugh. The room full of reporters kept talking, waiting for his next quote. Vikram lowered the microphone. "My son needs me," he said, voice calm enough to freeze fire. "That will be all for today." He walked out without another word. The Virginia State Police major who tried to stop him in the hallway took one look at his face and stepped aside. Back at the station, the younger officer, name tag Red Kowalski, kept glancing at the holding room monitor. The kid hadn't moved in 40 minutes, hadn't cried, hadn't asked for anything except water. Politely, Kowalski opened the system, typed the full name, Arjun Vikram Mehta. Google filled the screen like Judgment Day. Valedictorian speech at statewide conference. Photo with the governor. Article, son of Attorney General Mehta heads the Princeton interview. His hands started shaking. He closed the browser, but the damage was done. The front desk phone exploded. Reporters, civil rights groups, random mothers who saw their own sons in that 29-second clip. The video crossed 3 million views before lunch. Hash driving while brown trended #1 nationwide. Hash wrong shade of brown. Hash they cuffed the valedictorian. Hash protect brown boys. The station commander, Captain Hargrove, aged 10 years in 10 minutes. By 2 p.m. the governor called personally. By 2:17 p.m. the front doors opened and Vikram Mehta walked in wearing the same charcoal suit he'd worn to argue before the Supreme Court of Virginia, tie still knotted like a noose. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Every officer in the building felt the temperature drop 10 degrees. He asked for 3 things, voice quiet, lethal. His son, the watch commander, every frame of body cam footage in the building. They brought Arjun out 12 minutes later. Cuffs removed. No apology, just a mumbled, "You're free to go." His blazer was wrinkled, his shirt untucked on one side. The collar had left a perfect red circle on his wrist. He walked past the officers without a glance. Outside, the parking lot had become a circus. News vans, protesters with signs, "Hands off our kids. Brown excellence is not probable cause." Arjun stopped at the top of the steps. Cameras flashed like war. A reporter shoved the MIC forward. "Arjun, what do you have to say?" He looked straight into the lenses, voice steady, almost gentle. "I missed my Princeton interview because I was handcuffed for driving while brown, but I rescheduled it for tomorrow morning. They don't get to steal my future. Not today. Not ever." That 30-second clip broke 5 million views in an hour. Princeton called before he even reached the car. The dean personally. We'll see you tomorrow. Take all the time you need. His father waited by the state SUV, arms open for the first time in public. Ajun walked into them and finally let himself shake. 3 days later, the disciplinary hearing was supposed to be closed session. It wasn't. Body cam footage leaked within hours. Someone inside the department with a conscience and a thumb drive. The lead officer, Sergeant Roy Dunham, 22 years on the force, voice crystal clear. You don't look like you belong in a car like this. The state exploded. Vikram Mehta didn't sit at the family table. He stood at the prosecution table wearing the full weight of his office. He played the footage once, no commentary. Then he asked Dunham one question. When you looked at my son, what crime did you see? Dunham opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Officer Kowalski took the stand next. Hands trembling, she admitted everything. I knew something was wrong the second we pulled in. The kid was polite. Clean cut. Skate. Not shady. But Dunham's my training officer. I didn't want to make waves on my first year. I was wrong. I'm sorry. She looked directly at Arjun when she said it. The panel ruled by end of day. Dunham, suspended without pay, mandatory retraining, all passed up to be audited for pattern of bias. Kowalski, probation, but offered a slot to teach the new bias recognition module because she asked to help fix what she helped break. They created the Meta Youth Oversight Board, 5 seats, all under 25, all from communities that knew cuffs too well. Arjun took the first chair. A month later, Princeton didn't just accept him. They gave him the full ride plus the new Meta Family Scholarship they created the same week, funded by anonymous donors who turned out to be half the Virginia Bar Association. Move-in day, August. Arjun stood in front of 800 freshmen at convocation, wearing the same blazer. Wrinkles long gone, but the memory pressed forever into the fabric. He didn't talk about the cuffs. He talked about breath. I used to think breathing was just surviving, he began. 4 counts in, hold 4, out 6. A trick to keep from exploding when the world decided your skin was a threat. But I learned something on the side of I-95. Breath isn't just survival. It's the first act of resistance. It's how we stay whole when they try to break us into pieces small enough to dismiss. It's how we remind them and ourselves that we are still here, still dreaming, still becoming. He paused. The room was so quiet you could hear 800 hearts beating. I stand here not because they failed to stop me. I stand here because I refuse to stop breathing. The applause didn't start in one place. It started everywhere at once. In the front row, Attorney General Vikram Mehta stood first. No tears. Just the smallest nod a father gives when his son has turned pain into something the world has to reckon with. Because justice isn't always a gavel. Sometimes it's a brown boy in a wrinkled blazer who keeps walking forward. Sometimes it's 800 strangers standing up for a story they now carry too. And sometimes, justice is just breath. Steady, unyielding, alive. If this story shook something loose in you, share it. Because the wrong shade of brown is every shade that refuses to shrink. And tomorrow has always belonged to the ones who keep breathing.